Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Sarabo, and today I'm joined by Lloyd Drum, Senior Business Transition Strategist with Comerica Wealth Management, and also Kyle Gemis, who is Group Manager, Business Banking. Welcome to both of you. Today, we're talking about planning for business ownership transition. The time is now. Before we get into our presentation, tell me a little bit about yourselves. Lloyd, we'll start with you.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Very good to see you again. Um, I am Senior Business Transition Strategist at Comerica Bank, and I meet with business owners to talk about business transition, management succession, and corporate governance issues across the footprint in the bank and across industry sectors.
Okay, Kyle, tell us about yourself and your role with Comerica.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. So I've been a long time relationship manager here at the bank, and I just recently transitioned into our group manager role here. So spent a lot of time working directly with owner-operated business owners one-on-one. A lot of great experience there. And as group manager, I still get to do that now with even more customers with my team of RM. So looking forward to it.
Okay. As we mentioned, the time is now for business transition planning. Lloyd, first tell us a little bit more about what that is exactly.
Great. I think it's important to start, Susan, with making a distinction between business transition and business transition planning. Business transition is actually when the ownership of the business changes hands at the execution point. And that could be either a sale to a strategic buyer, an ESOP, or even a leveraged buyout. By contrast, business transition planning is really a defined strategy that is intended to create a glide path to identify and implement the best transition strategy for a business owner, defined by one that meets his overall objective set. So I think it's important to start there.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about benefits of early planning. Lloyd, do you want to start with this?
Sure, I think the benefits of early planning are many, but two that are primary are a lot of business owners wait way too long in the cycle of the business to even start to begin to think about this kind of thing. And why that is troublesome is that a lot of the strategies that can be put to work require time to become effectual. A lot of tax strategy require time. Additionally, it's extremely important that a business owner defines and prioritizes their objectives for themselves, their family, their employees, the business, really across the board in terms of how they want this to turn out and really how can they achieve the vision they have for their clients. I know that in partnering with Kyle, he goes down this path with his owners and with his business owner clients. And Kyle, why don't you share a little bit of your experience when you begin to broach your subject with the folks that you meet with?
Yeah, well, I mean, for a lot of my business owner clients, I mean, obviously, all these folks are extremely busy. Their time's very valuable. We understand that. We want to respect that. But to me, the whole concept of business transition planning versus business transition, it's being proactive versus being reactive, right? And I always try to encourage my folks to be as pre or proactive as possible. And that can be hard because a lot of these business owners, depending on the stage of their business, where they're at, they can be really having to wear a lot of hats. Their time's very valuable. And this process, while extremely valuable, it does require some intellectual horsepower. It does require some thinking, some thought, some time. So it's kind of just getting over that initial hurdle, which I think can be challenging. And the way I've kind of broached it with my clients is just, hey, this work, this effort that we're doing now, it's going to pay massive dividends down the road in terms of millions potentially of dollars saved or earned. So it's incredibly valuable. It should be a top priority. And then I think when my clients kind of see it and maybe change perspectives that way, it really can be a light bulb kind of aha moment. So it's very impactful to kind of have those initial kind of discussions early on for sure.
Well, that makes sense. And you could see why business owners would put it on the back burner because, as you said, they have so much going on. It's hard to carve out the time to do this. The next slide we have says, ask the tough questions today. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. So, what about starting out this process? How does that work?
I think the best way to approach it is to sit down with the business owner and let them talk. Listen to what's important to them in terms of their business. They've probably put years, if not decades, of sweat equity into this enterprise. What is their visualization for what comes next? I think it's also important that business owners begin to understand that this is a complex venture. Not for them, certainly, but hopefully not for folks that do what we do. But I think it's important to understand that accessing professional advice, professional advisory, both for your personal wealth strategies and the business transition strategies, is critically important. And again, I mentioned earlier, it all starts with defining your priorities. Is this something that's going to be intergenerationally transferred? Is it going to be something where you want to benefit your employees through possibly an ESOP or a non-equity type incentive compensation program? These are the kinds of questions we want to table and to present to our clients so they can begin to understand what needs to be done, who they need to be working with, and the time that it's going to take in order to craft a strategy that's going to be very good for them.
Okay, Kyle, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would. I mean, for me, from my perspective, as kind of the relationship manager, kind of key point of contact, kind of helping facilitating that bridge, that gap to, between my customer and Lloyd's team and whatnot. It's really fun and it's really empowering for me to kind of, especially initially and early on, because it's really, to me, it's a two-part process. It's very exploratory and it's also very educational. And I've had a lot of customers kind of come into this process from the very get-go who have kind of had some maybe preconceived ideas or notions of what they thought they wanted to do or what they thought was best. But by going through this process, by asking these questions, by just letting them talk, like Lloyd said, it can be really impactful in that they'll do almost a complete 180 sometimes, as far as just, and that comes with the educational piece of it too, where they just, they think they want X, but they come out with Y. And that's really cool to watch. The biggest thing we can do and what we try to do is, like Lloyd said, we just try to ask questions and then we just be quiet, let them talk, we listen. And so for me, it's the first part of this process is the most exciting, in my opinion, for sure.
Well, it is really important that business owners know what their options are. And that brings us to our next slide where we're going to talk about pre and post transition planning. So Lloyd, tell us what's involved in pre-planning.
Sure. Pre-planning and post-transition planning are critical steps to a well-defined overall strategy. As far as pre-transition strategies go, it's understanding what you can do before you execute, before you even really entertain what strategy for eventual transition that you want to do. Some of the ones that are preeminent would be tax strategies in terms of, let's say somebody's got a fairly significant wealth picture. The business may make up a lot of it, but they've got other asset groups and they have a significant asset size. There are things that can be done, strategies can be employed in order to minimize taxes and to help a business owner preserve the wealth that they built. And even more so, if it's either a family generational transition or if the wealth's going to the next generation, to lessen, if not eliminate, the state tax burden. And that is very critical these days because I'm sure most everybody listening now is aware that the federal exemption is being cut in half. The state tax exemption is going to be cut in half in about 14 months. So the time is now not only to begin thinking about business transition, but to access that opportunity before it's gone.
Right, because many business owners may not even know what's happening with tax laws and the changes that are on the horizons and how those changes could affect them. Kyle, what would you like to add to the pre and post transition planning discussion?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's no time like the present, right? The time to start is now. And a lot of this, like some of the toughest conversations I've had with customers who have transitioned their business, whether it's via sale or some kind of other option in the past, it's that there wasn't enough pre-planning and thought done on the front end to where now on the back end, once everything's kind of locked in place via the signing of the LOI, which is kind of a big trigger, there's really not a whole lot that either myself, Lloyd, or his team can do as far as helping add value or maximize value and or potentially mitigate the tax bill and strategies. All of that could have been done on the front end if we would have known about it, right? So it's hard for me because, like I said, I've seen it on both ends where it's like I've seen customers that have saved or gained millions of dollars simply by investing the time up front to try to do this the right way and speaking to people, getting professional advice. And I've seen people who just kind of, picked up the phone one day, they got a phone call they couldn't refuse, signed an LOI, And by doing so, without any of that consulting advice and strategy on the front end and planning, it probably ended up costing them millions of dollars in value and then also tax burden too. So that's a hard conversation to kind of see it on both ends of that way. So earlier is always better for sure.
Right? And you don't want to make an emotional decision. You want to make your decision based on facts. Okay, Lloyd, we're going to take a look at key takeaways now. Give us a summary of the key points that you'd like people to remember from watching this.
Okay, again, Kyle just nailed it. You got to start early. You've got to start entertaining this, just like you would have operational strategies for the growth of your business, financially speaking. It's very important that business owners begin to think about the future of their business. It's never too early. Age is really inconsequential. It's starting to understand what this process employs, what I need to know to get my hands around it, and what are the viable options that are going to be good to help me achieve what I want to do. A point that I did want to make is when I started in this business about 25 years ago, the statistics for successful business transition were not very good. About 70% of business owners fail to transition successfully, meaning they don't hit all of their objective list. There's some loss there. That is the same statistic that it is today, unfortunately. But the good news is with proper planning, starting early, accessing advisory that can help you, you can end up having a successful road down what you want to do with your business. And it's going to have a big effect on the owners, the employees, their family. And in fact, for many owners, this is the biggest financial decision they may ever make.
It is a huge decision. Kyle, did you have any final thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, well, I guess I would just say, whether the business owner wants to admit or believe it or not, the business is going to transition one day, one way or another, whether that's, an ESOP, selling the business, whatever. The point is, at some point, the business is going to transition one way or another. So I would encourage and would hope every business owner would want to try to control that process as much as possible, try to do everything in his or her power to make that outcome the most desirable to not only themselves, but to their families, to their employees. Earlier is always better. Like Lloyd said, the day you start the business, let's figure out how we start transitioning it. So absolutely.
Okay, great advice. Thanks to both of you. We do have a lot more information on our website. If you'd like to know more, you can go to comerica.com/know more or comerica.com/insights. We have a whole lot of content for you to learn more about this very important subject if you're a business owner. Thanks again to both of you. Have a great day, everyone.